really come together to pull together to team to work on teacher and student support for both Lincoln Learning and Edgenuity for both our elementary and secondary students there. And so before we get started with questions, I just want to thank you once again for your patience, for how long it takes us to answer a phone call, an email. We get about 100 to 200 emails a day just to my email alone, and about that same number of phone calls. And so we're trying to meet those demands. And I'm going to pitch it to Misty Doyle, our curriculum director for the district, and she'll tell you a little bit more about some of those learning supports that are right around the corner.
Good evening, parents. I first wanted to say thank you for joining us tonight, and I greatly appreciate your patience through our transition to the virtual world. I recently have transitioned over to the virtual world myself. I've been, we have to say it that way because we also have what we call the blended model, and I've been really working on the blended model, which is our on-site instruction, and then we pivot to the remote. So that's where I've been this whole time. However, I work up here in the office with Mr. Jackson, and Ms. Crenshaw's been up here, and you know, there's a huge need, and our virtual academy has just exploded with numbers. And so what the original plan with the numbers we had and the support, we realize now we have to add more support. And so I've jumped into the virtual world now. Professional development is my area, my strength. And so what we are doing is I looked at the staff that we had in the buildings, with our instructional facilitators. We have Colleen LeChucky and Jennifer Engelken, who are instructional facilitators in our buildings, but they have a technology background. So what I've recently just decided is that we're going to pull them over to support Keena with the PD piece for teachers and parents. So we met with them today. We worked on a plan. There are a couple things I'm really excited about. First of all, Mr. Jackson, as he mentioned, they are receiving emails, phone calls, parent visits, text messages, all hours of the night. And so I would like to streamline that and have a link where parents can put all of their questions in a very easy Google form link that that way I can look at that master form, and so can Mr. Jackson, and we can organize the calls that are coming in and now assign different people to handle those. So before this, Ms. Crenshaw was answering calls for Lincoln Learning, Edgenuity, enrollment. So now we've added our 2 new instructional facilitators to our team, at least until we get really off the ground here. So we've added those 2 instructional facilitators to handle Lincoln Learning, whereas now Keena will oversee the Edgenuity piece. So it was funny, we met with one of them today, and she is very tech savvy, but she said, I'm going to have to study a lot. And so we are arranging time for her to study. They're going to be over here tomorrow working. And just like you guys, we're frustrated, and because there are lots of questions. The Lincoln Learning group, they're just as busy, and there aren't a lot of great videos. I mean, there's some small good videos out there, but we know we have to tailor some videos specific to our parents and our teachers and what they need. So we know that. We started today, and I just went through a list of questions I'm seeing coming through, and I said, let's start some tutorials that we know that we're gonna have to work and do for parents. And so I've read through your comments on Facebook. I've read through some comments. We've asked teachers to organize some of their most frequently asked questions, and so that way we can work on some tutorials for you guys. Another thing that we're going to do, so Mr. Jackson will push out our link, that way we can organize and assign people to jobs to return phone calls to parents in a timely manner. Another thing that we're adding is a live chat option. This will be in the link that you received tonight after the webinar. Mr. Jackson's going to push that out. You might not see the box now because the live chat's not available yet, but when a live chat is available, you can click on that and have someone live it'll almost like ring their phone, and you can chat with them. If they need to do more than just chat with you through that link, then they can pick up the phone and call you, do a Zoom with you. So Colleen and Ms. Engelken will both work out a schedule where they're available to do live chat. So I'm really excited about that option, just because we sat and talked and we visited and we said, what do parents want? When we call Suddenlink, let's just say Suddenlink, and we're having a problem, we need someone right then. We want that immediate response. And so that's when we came up with the chat option, because sometimes things sit in emails for a while, and people are working and the best they can, but the calls, the volume is just so great. So we're going to have a live chat option at least until we get good and off the ground. But the link for the Google form is also there. So that way I can see when the call came in, has someone addressed it yet? Has it been assigned to someone yet? Instead of just calls out there everywhere. So that's something I'm really excited about. Another thing, today we were Zooming with Mr. Jackson's virtual teachers, and some teachers had some questions, and someone's like, I've already done a video for that and shared it with my parents. I thought, oh my goodness. So if the other teachers would have known that, we could have shared that out. So we created a drive for the teachers to upload their videos that they are doing for their own parents. So that way other teachers in that group can pull those videos and share them with their parents, especially if it's something that's frequently asked. So I'm really excited about that. So you'll hear more from us in the upcoming days. Our new trainers are going to come on. They're going to study, research. One of them already led a training for teachers on Friday. So here's what I can say. Our teachers are doing the best that they can with the knowledge they have right now. And so we all are. We are going to take your calls, organize them in a way that we can provide immediate response to you.
Good. Thank you, Misty.
You're welcome.
One other quick addition to that, I have another new person on staff that is through the kind of the preliminary hiring process, and he comes in for the first day tomorrow for training. And he's a young man by the name of Weston Newcomb, and he will be here for about 3 or 4 days a week for about 4 hours a day. He's an ASU student in the BSN nursing program, so we're glad to have him here. But we will start training with that young man tomorrow to respond in the chat room, to be making phone calls, and for some tech support. And so we've got a couple of days of training with him, and then I will be adding a couple of more staff members very, very soon. So we're responding to our needs, and Dr. Wilbanks is approving those positions and part-time positions as the budget allows. So we're trying to be mindful of the always pressing need of being conservative with the budget, but also meeting the needs of our families and students. So that Mr. Weston Newcomb will be starting tomorrow. So I'm excited to have that official tech support that's just dedicated to virtual school. So anyway, Dr. Wilbanks, do you have anything to say or want to throw some questions out from the chat room for us? And so welcome and thank you for joining us tonight.
Absolutely. So thank you to all of our team on the screen who's been working pretty much around the clock trying to get virtual school up and going. And then thank you to our parents who are joining us tonight. Just thank you for your patience. We know that it has not been as smooth. We did not receive the Lincoln Learning material as quickly as we would have liked to have received it. We feel like we're learning it as you are. And we do know that there are some features that teachers can add to the Lincoln Learning individualized screens that are going to make those easier for you to use as a parent. So we're in the process of customizing those. So don't give up on how cumbersome it may feel to use that Lincoln Learning material. We're going to be going in within the next few days and next week and customizing those so that they're much easier to use. So I think a lot of what we're going to try to do tonight is we may not answer your question, but we may give you the mechanism of how to go about who can answer that specific question, because I know you all have very unique questions. But as I look at the chat and I look at the questions that were submitted previously, one of the things that immediately comes to mind, and guys, this is I struggle. Printers, they're of the devil. So we've got people who we can't get our printer connected. We can't print our work. We just printer issues. So you mentioned we're going to hire somebody for tech support. I'm guessing if I have a printer issue, he's going to be my go-to to help me know specifically what to do, because every printer and every device is different. So there's not one standard answer. Mr. Jackson, can you tell me specifically, if I can't make my printer work, specifically how do I get him without, I've called our phone system. It's of the devil too. Okay. So how do I get straight to that printer help?
So straight to that printer help. Misty, do you want to explain that process? You planned that for me today, and I kind of know it, but you can explain it better than myself. So
after this webinar, and actually Mr. Jackson has one more after this one, he is going to send out the link. We have that link ready. And you're going to type this quick Google form, name, how we contact you, your specific question with your printer. I know we've been helping with printers. Michael Summers, who's our tech director, said last night he was on the phone with a parent like at midnight working on printers. So once you submit it through that link, tomorrow we will start assigning people to address those calls. So our Mr. Newcomb, he doesn't come on until Friday. So I will assign that to probably Michael Summers immediately to address that call if it's depending on what it is. Here's the thing with printers, and I asked Mr. Summers this today because that was one of the questions that we had, and he said, listen, it could be the printer, it depends on the printer, it depends on the device we sent home, it depends on so much. So he will, we will assign someone to that once you put it in your Google form tonight. And then in the morning, he will troubleshoot, just like when you call your cable company and they troubleshoot and they're like, look at this, did you see this on? So he will do that, even if he has to Zoom with you and you show him exactly what you have. So we will assign someone to that through that Google form.
So when we're talking about printers, what I know about training a new technology person is my knowledge and experience of this not very high. But for me to be thrust in the world of technology when I've not really been there just a whole lot in my previous roles, what I know is I will spend my first 2 to 5 days with Mr. Newcomb, getting him acclimated to how to log in a student into the devices and the software. Those are our most pressing issues that we have a long list we're still working through. Those printer connections are just a little bit more complicated. So we'll have to learn how to prioritize which ones to hand over to our existing technology department and then handle the ones with our training that we have. So that's kind of where I'm thinking on that, Misty.
The next part is, what do we do if we don't have a printer? And so right now, if you do have a printer and can't get working, that means you don't have a printer right now, or if you just don't have a printer. So as we've been training teachers, and we said this today on their Zoom with them, if they do not have a printer and there's a document that week that requires a worksheet, something that they have to have that they can't do on a blank sheet of paper and take a picture of, then you will need to work out a time with your teacher, contact your teacher, and they will print it for you and meet you in the parking lot for the week's work that you need printed. If you do have a printer, that's great. If you do and it's not working now, and you have a capability of doing the same work on a blank sheet of paper, having your child take a picture of it, upload it to Lincoln Learning, teachers are accepting that also. That's an option. There are several options, but you work with your teacher and they can work out what's best for you. And it might be that they say, you don't have to do that worksheet. Do it on a blank sheet of paper if it's a journal entry or if it's a log. I saw where someone asked about a log you have to complete. You could easily draw that log on a sheet of paper and just take a picture of it and upload it to the program. And if you don't know how to do that, your teacher can help you with that also.
And I've also seen a couple of questions about, it's a little confusing. Work at your own pace, but then there's a due date. And then also, just as a parent, there's a lot of material I'm just not familiar with. So can you kind of walk us through why is the due date listed, and what kind of support is my Jonesboro Public School teacher going to give to help me as a parent know how to walk through that Lincoln Learning material? Who wants that one? Miss Moore looks like she wants it.
I can start with that one. We also visited with them about this Friday at their training. The work is asynchronous in the sense that teachers assign assignments for the week, and if a student completes all assignments, five assignments and lessons for each class, because there are usually assignment per day per class, depending on what it is. There might be fewer if it's social studies, something like that. But if they assign these for the week, the student can do them all in one day if they want to do all that, and then have the rest of the week to do enrichment activities. And I'll explain a little bit about that in just a minute. Or a student can pace themselves and do one per day. I think about it like when I used to take online courses at ASU. And I was the type that I liked to know my assignments for the week, and then I kind of planned out the week as, okay, based on my schedule or based on your child's schedule. I know I can do this many on these days because I have something going on at the end of the week and I can get them all finished. Or my week's super busy. I want to pace myself out because it's just too much work. So that's the sense of asynchronous. If you have a child who wants to work well in advance, we have the Imagine Language and Literacy. We have Imagine Math, where they could work all the way up to high school level. We've also asked the teachers to work on some enrichment activities that would that they could give to the student, but that's where you can do your advanced work. Also, teachers aren't assigning, we're working with them on, you don't have to assign every activity in that lesson. You can assign certain activities. So the enrichment activity might be, okay, if you want to move and do more this week, you could do more activities than what the teacher's requiring for all the students to do in that class. Does that help?
I think so. I noticed a couple of questions are about engagement, and I think this kind of all goes along. And the lessons are not as engaging or it's difficult for a parent to engage. So two things I want to tell you. Number one, you are not behind. Wherever you are not behind. For our on-site learners, most of the last 2 weeks have been spent in distributing devices, going through protocols, just get to know you, get familiar. So don't feel like you're behind. And secondly, I think you're going to see the engagement level pick up greatly after Labor Day, because your teacher is going to start, your Jonesboro Public School teacher is going to start engaging with your student more through Zoom meetings and tying what's happening in that Zoom meeting to what's happening in their Lincoln Learning modules. So I think they're going to be able to really respond to your concerns about engagement as you move along. I had a question here about why do we use Edgenuity for upper grades and Lincoln Learning for lower grades? Ms. Crenshaw, give us the quick, pretty easy answer on that one.
The easiest answer ever. So the state provides Lincoln Learning for districts to use for free. So we jumped on that opportunity. So that's how Lincoln Learning came about through APSRC. And then we have actually used Edgenuity at the high school for the past 2 years. It is a product that we have purchased and used with many, many kids. It's been effective. And so we just decided we would continue on since that's what they already knew how to use.
Okay. I understand. And so we're still learning, and we love your questions about struggles with Lincoln Learning, because we're turning around and we're calling the Lincoln Learning people and saying, help us with this. So I see a couple of people who are saying students can't fill out forms or type stuff in Lincoln Learning. So it's causing more printer issues because they're having to print things off. So we'll put that on our list. We'll make a note of that. Does anybody have a response for that, or we'll just?
I actually saw we're part of this Educator Lincoln Facebook page that we look and see. You guys are having the same questions that everybody's having across the state. And I saw something on that today about students not being able to respond and some directions for teachers. So I have that on my list to look into tomorrow, or have Colleen and Jennifer look into, because there's a setting they can go in and help fix that. Just a quick about this due date thing. I saw another comment that kind of goes along with due dates for kids. It's showing up as due and it really isn't due that day because teachers are given assignments for the week. There is whoever this is, I'm not sure who it is on the chat. There is a way we can go in and turn off that continuous mode. We just looked that up about an hour before we came on today. And so we made a note on how can we go in and turn it off, that continuous mode, so that way the due dates don't show up for teachers or for students. And then we can tell our teachers how to do that. That's a good question.
Had another really good question here. I have an assignment and it asks for some odd materials that I don't have at home. Ball bearings, digital scale, sling psychrometer. I'm not even sure if I'd know how to go buy that. And so those are the kinds of things, no, don't go buy those. As the teacher has more time to review those lessons, those are the kinds of lessons they will omit, and those will be optional. they just have not had an opportunity to go in and customize those lessons. So for heaven's sakes, no, don't purchase those things. Send back a note to the teacher that says that's a problem. I see Ms. Doyle's, she's putting a note down to take care of that.
I am. Yeah, I saw some comments about some things like those unique items, pedometer or something else. And yeah, I don't go buy those things. We can, and the thing about those elective courses, those are not taught by our teachers, but in the end, for those elective courses like PE, art, we go in and put those, Keena and I were just talking about this right before, we go in and put those grades in. So, you know, if they're asking something that's not realistic, then we will have to figure out how can we make that work where we don't want people going and buying pedometers. One thing we did mention about supplies, if you are a parent at home and you just don't have paper, those normal supplies that you may need, those are the things that you need to talk to your teacher about. We have some resources out there for simple school supplies if they need those. The unique items, that's a different story. But just normal school supplies, we have some donors that we can round up some resources for you.
So I'm just curious, I think probably teachers have all sent out a schedule, but if I'm a parent, what can I expect? Like, what should my students, my virtual students' daily schedule look like? It doesn't have to follow our recommendation, but what if I just need some guidance on that? How many Zooms are we going to do a week? I mean, how am I going to connect with my teacher?
I will speak to that. In our elementary world, what happens in K through 6 is totally different than what happens in 7 through 12. So you can't merge that response across the district. This response is specifically for K through 6. Whenever teachers push out their weekly schedules, those schedules, and I visited with all of the elementary teachers and SPED teachers last week on Friday and talked about as we transition from face-to-face teachers and face-to-face learners, we're very used to extremely tight schedules. Everything has to run perfectly to meet lunches and recesses and activity periods. So to move from that world, it's quite an adjustment. Educators are rule followers, and many of us choose it because of that. And so now all of a sudden to go into this less synchronized system, the schedules are there as suggested guidelines. And so whenever I've looked at some of the schedules, they may put 40 minutes in for math, but that daily activity may take 10 minutes. And so when you look at that, those structures are there for those that need it, that need that to kind of keep their child on task and learning and the teacher said so kind of mode. But we have just as many other people that are out there or listening tonight that you signed up because you want some flexibility in your daily schedules. And so if you have an independent learner that's doing well and you don't need that support, by all means, let us get out of your way and access that learning portal. Knock those lessons out, and then I know several families, they enrich the learning process up on their own, and so that's what we want to happen there. Also, we have a hope that we can kind of have a weekly, kind of a Monday morning launch that just says, hey, here's what our week looks like, some weekly reminders, and that way. The next thing that happens, the teacher has some required screeners that they have to do to get district guidelines for dyslexia, reading intervention, all of those type of things. Those things, we're still doing those. They're doing them on site. We're still doing them now virtually. And so there's times whenever they say, hey, I need to Zoom. Yes, we need to participate in that one. So don't be afraid to reach out to the teacher and explain which part of the virtual that you need customized as far as, you know, we've got this Lincoln Learning, we can handle this. Which ones do you really need me at? And so there will be times they might see that kids are struggling, and most of their mornings should be kind of built for more face-to-face help and support. Afternoon, more of office hours to help with that. During those office hours, it's our afternoon schedules for those students that have interventions for dyslexia. If they have any resource classes and they need to Zoom with their resource teacher, and they have some regular ed and they have some resource classes. So we've kind of claimed the morning for regular ed, and we've claimed the afternoon for all the extra interventions and those types of things. We do that because if we ever have the need to go to the blended learning and our face-to-face kids get sent home, that structure's in place, ready to launch, isn't it, Misty? If we get that phone call from Dr. Wilbanks or the governor, as we do that, we're planning for weeks or days down the road, perhaps, to make that all work out. So it's very synchronized there. So those schedules are there as suggestions. Take the ball and run with it. And that's way too long, but it's such an important question. So don't be afraid to communicate to the teacher and just clarify, which ones do I really need to be at? We're doing pretty well here. So we're learning and building it as we go, guys.
And so I'm not going to answer all these questions, but we know this is probably going to be a training video that's going to be available to you. You have lots of questions about submitting work, lots of challenges you've had with submitting work. We have heard your concerns, and we are currently working on that. All the way from some of the, I can't write in the form, I can't draw beside because I have a computer, not an iPad. So just know that's all coming. So we'll take care of that for you. Another question that is a pretty general question is the content is too difficult or there's too much content. We've looked at the Lincoln Learning material just like you have. We agree with you that there are some grades that have just too much. It's too much to ask of a student. So once again, that's going to be something that on our end, you're going to see something come out that's going to give you permission to do fewer assignments. It's going to give you permission to make adjustments or to work with your teacher on that. When we have 25 students in a room, we have an assignment, but we do not expect 25 students to complete that assignment in exactly the same way with the exact amount of help, same amount of help. Now you get that opportunity to adjust that in your home. So we're going to be, I'm not going to really, we don't have the answer of how that's going to happen, but that's on our list as well.
Dr. Wilbanks, if I could just extend that just a little bit. I've been fielding some questions, watching posts on Facebook across the state and here locally. I see and I notice the concerns there about my special education student. We have been working on several days with Karen Swift and Wendy Prater. We have our elementary resource teachers are meeting in the morning. Ms. Swift and I will drop in and answer those questions, help them with how to customize Lincoln Learning, shut off some of those modules while at the same time following the IEP. We're working as fast as we can, but we have not forgotten the special ed students and how to customize tied to their IEP, and then also customize in the regular face-to-face. For those of you that don't know me, this is year 29 for me, and I was a principal for 20 years. And so the regular curriculum that we've had face-to-face, we take that curriculum that we use, we pick the best parts, use those, and we cut stuff out. And so we are just on the cusp of getting back with our teachers. Tuesday at 1:30, they have a meeting with me again to talk about that customization process. So we have to learn that. So I just ask for a little more patience, do the best you can. Give your child grace, give us grace, just like you have been, and we're on top of getting it more palatable, if you will. So
thank you, RJ. You gave us a really good specific description of your struggle, and we know it's real, and we will work on that. You also have several questions, so I know a video is going to be coming on grading. Where are grades? What are you taking grades on? How do I know what my student's grading? And I understand I mentioned you're not behind. I understand why you're worried, because for many of you, this is your first time to ever experience, I'm now pacing the instruction for my student. And that's the very reason we did that pacing. So if you stick with that pacing to the best, you don't have to be exactly stick to that pacing, but if you're pretty close to it, that means by the end of the year, you're going to complete everything. One thing I'd give you permission to be a slacker on for a little bit. I may be in trouble for saying this. hey, if you just get your core down, if you just get figured out how to use this portal and you stay caught up in your reading and your math and your literacy pieces until you get more comfortable, don't spend 7 hours. Just get that core done. We'll then fill in the gaps in those other contents. I certainly wouldn't be worried about my art PE and my music. Just help your child be successful and not become frustrated, and stick with the core. Is that bad advice or good advice?
No, I think it's great advice. And I was reading RJ's comment too. I agree. I have a 5th grader and he could not sit on the computer for 6 hours a day. So I definitely agree with the 2nd grader. And just be patient with us on that. We are training to keep in mind, teachers just got access to Lincoln Learning because we just got access to the portals. And so we are training them on how to hide activities or choose the activities. We shouldn't be doing all these activities. It's too much. And then there are also choices on where you can view it. I mean, where you can watch a video, you can do. So you don't have to do all of, there are several ways for you to get the information. So it's really designed to help your child in the best way they learn, whether it's visually, auditorily. So just know that we are working with teachers on how to reduce some of those activities so that way you don't think you have to do them all. And there are several great pieces in that comment that we're going to work on some tutorials to help teachers and parents with that one.
So one other, some of you have asked some questions that are very specific to your student. And for the 53 of you that are participating, we're going to give you a head start. If you'll type in your student's name, their grade, and your specific question, we will capture all of these questions. And I'm going to tell you, I can't tell you how much we appreciate your questions. We can only look at this through the perspective of the educator because we're not you out there trying to be the parent. So we can't fix what we don't know is broken. So please do not have any hesitation to ask us questions because we certainly want to fix that. I'm trying to look and see.
I'm seeing several about the students are submitting their work and they're not getting like a green check mark, that it's completed, and that's frustrating. I agree. I would, as a parent, I would want to know if I submitted it, it's complete, or we're finished, the teacher has it now. So that kind of goes along. Can teachers see the work they're receiving? And so we're gonna dive in tomorrow and just try to see. I've got a note on that one too. What's going on with that? You should be able to know when your child has, and you should be able to see your students' work they've completed. And there may just be something that we need to put out that says how to do that. Keena, I don't know if you know, but there are a couple things like that I know that we're going to have to look at. You should know as a parent when they're completed the work, and then the teacher should be able to see the students' completed assignments as well.
Okay, we're at 6:15, so we can, if we did our best to look at the questions as we were going. If we missed your question, resubmit it. We've probably got about 5 more minutes before we have to finish up. And I apologize. I'll try to scroll back through and see if we got everything.
I'm screen capturing your questions over here so they don't disappear when we close out of this webinar.
I see a couple more maybe. Let me go to the bottom. Several assignments require students to draw or illustrate what they have read in the space provided. How do I do this on a MacBook?
I would say it's easy with an iPad. MacBook, I don't know. If you're not able to do that yet, I know there's some tutorials we can put out. You could have them draw and take a picture of it and upload it.
Can I give just a really quick, for those of you that are on here, I'm going to give you a little bit of technical advice with PDFs if you download them. If you download a PDF and save it to your desktop, if you right-click it and open it with Preview, there are tools across the top that allow you to draw on that document and save it, and then you could resubmit it. So if you're having to download a document that's a PDF, if you open it with Preview, that's the name of the Mac on your MacBook Air, that's the name of the program, and you can actually annotate that, and then you can upload it back.
I see another person has a question about teachers using multiple kinds of communication. One's using Seesaw, one's using Class Dojo, the third's using Google Classroom, and the fourth hasn't let you know. So here's the bad news. Yeah, that's how it works. Here's the good news. If you were an on-site learner, that's how it would work. Seesaw is really designed for really young children. Then they move up to Class Dojo, and then older students begin using Google Classroom as their communication tool because it's more reliance for the student, more independence to the student, and they're going to use Google Classroom. From the time they start using that, I think it's a third grader, so they're going to start using Google Classroom, and they're going to use that all the way through 12th grade, potentially through college. So I'm sorry. That's just kind of a sequence of moving from a simpler, easier tool to a bigger tool. I do believe the Lincoln Learning teachers will begin to use the management system inside of Lincoln Learning. Do y'all think that's going to happen? We didn't know that existed, or we would have never set anything else up. And so surprise, it came with it.
Carlene and I were watching a video last week on it, Dr. Wilbanks, and we're like, wait a minute, they can communicate directly through Lincoln Management or through Lincoln Learning Management System instead of using all these others. What we discovered, we visited with teachers Friday, and Mr. Jackson had grade levels get together and decide what are you going to do, you know. Most communication, once Lincoln Learning gets familiar with it, everybody gets familiar with it, will go through Lincoln Learning. Most of the teachers wanted to continue using Class Dojo because it sends a message right to your phone. And as a parent, for me, I know I'm more likely to check a text message I get through Dojo or see it immediately than an email. So if they're still using Google Classroom, I think most of our teachers will move away from Google Classroom because all the things you can do in Google Classroom, I'm pretty certain you can do in Lincoln Learning now that they're learning more about it. Mr. Jackson?
The one exception to that is I believe 6th grade. I know we've added a teacher in grades 4, 5, and 6 yesterday and today, so I need to revisit that protocol for those grade levels. But 6th grade in particular has, in my opinion, having worked in the K-12 curriculum department for 2 years now, it's very beneficial for them also to use more frequently more platforms, especially Google Classroom, to get them ready for 7th grade, because it is highly dependent on that 7 through 12. So we also look at the big picture on that. So
if I had a question here, if your student needs a Class Dojo, or if only the teacher needs that, and only the teacher, correct? Would a student need a Class Dojo?
Yes, the teacher will send out information on how to sign up for that. It's really, if the teacher's using that, Cassidy, you can easily, the teacher will send you information on how to sign up for it. Yeah. And it comes through a text.
Yeah. One little clarification on that. I know we've fielded several questions here in the last couple of weeks about how do I get my Dojo code. That only comes from the teacher. That's set up at the teacher level. It's not set up by anybody in a technology department. That is strictly from the teacher. So the only person that really has that is one of your grade level teachers for that.
They tell you they're using Dojo and they haven't sent you that code yet, I would contact your teacher directly.
Yes.
Okay, very last question. As a parent, is there a way for the parent to go in and look at the student's work? I think is there a parent connection to Lincoln Learning, or do we just check in on our kids' credentials?
I don't know if we have found that yet, but I have not seen a learning management system that doesn't have a parent back end yet to enter a parent email address. So it may be in there, and it's something that we just have not found yet. It's a question, Misty, if you don't mind to write that down, to look for that so that we can enter parent email addresses so that you get updates on how they're doing to your email rather than having to go through the linking learning portal with your child.
So I'm going to end with this one. We love your Facebook questions. We love your Facebook comments. You are going to learn as much about how to use Lincoln Learning successfully as we are. When you find those tricks and you find things that work for you and your kiddo, please post those on Facebook. Don't assume anybody else has made that discovery. So we're all in this together. It's going to be a great year. It's going to be a great success. Thank you to the virtual team, which now includes everybody.
Yes.
So we're going to keep doing our best, and we'll keep checking back with you with other opportunities to do webinars just like this. So you guys have a great evening. And if you've got a secondary student, tune in. We're going to talk about something different. So thank you.
Good night. Appreciate y'all. Thank you.